Hello, my name's Fran Elson and I've got quite a story to tell you. And it all began in 2004 when my father died. My mother had died 10 years earlier and my brother and I cleared his house. We found a cache of letters, documents and photographs, over 250 altogether. The letters dated back to the Second World War and involved 3 women: Gisela, my great-grandmother in Vienna, Hulda, my grandmother in France, and Ilse, my mother in England. Now up to 2004, my siblings and I had no idea that my mother had such an amazing story in her background. To us, she was just Mum, who we knew was born in Czechoslovakia and grew up in Vienna. She never mentioned her childhood, and nor did she talk about our grandparents. When The Sound of Music came out in the early 60s, I remember her telling us that she also fled Austria over the Alps, just like Maria in the film. We all thought it was so romantic, but soon forgot. The letters, mostly in German, the family's native language, might so easily have been overlooked and thrown away. It was the documents found with them that caused bells to ring. Words such as Auschwitz, Drancy holding camp, and convoy numbers. It was because of these documents that we decided to have the letters translated. My sister Sonia in Australia got the job first because she knew a little German from school. But it was soon obvious that she needed help, so the cry went out to friends and friends of friends. And soon she had a band of enthusiastic helpers fascinated by the contents of those letters. And the story that emerged was mind-blowing. Those letters, dating back to 1938 to 1945, told an amazing story of true love, laughter and loss. And it was through those letters that we learnt of the hopes and the fears of those 3 ladies torn apart by the Nazis' hatred of all things Jewish. Gisela, my great-grandmother, was born into a middle-class Jewish family and married a Viennese businessman. They had 2 children, Hulda and Felix. Even then, at the beginning of the 20th century, there was a lot of unease in the Jewish community, and the family, concerned for the future, changed their name from the Jewish Cohn, K-H-O-N, to the more westernised Kerber. At 19 years, Hulda met and married Rudolf Frankenbusch from Prague, in what was then the Austro-Hungarian Empire. They both converted to Christianity at a baptism ceremony in 1909, again due to the anti-Semitic feelings prevalent even at those times. Hulda and Rudolf set up home just outside Prague. Rudolf was manager of various glass factories that produced fine crystal, light bulbs and lenses. The family were well off, with a townhouse and a country estate in the hinterland. They had 2 girls, Anita and my mother, Ilse. The 2 girls had a privileged and carefree childhood, looked after by their governess, Joanna. This idyllic childhood came to an abrupt end, however, when Hulda found that her husband was having an affair with the governess. Hulda left Prague with Ilse, and Anita stayed with her father and Joanna. Hulda and Ilse lived with Gisela, my great-grandmother, in Vienna, and from letters found they became a very tightly knit trio, working together and living a very contented life running a guest house in Baden, in the Vienna woods just south of Vienna. Anita married a Dutchman and went to Rotterdam in Holland to live. Ilse, my mother, became engaged to Roman. Hulda spent half her time running the guest house with Gisela and Ilse and half as companion secretary to Princess Marguerite von Campagny, an American heiress who had married an Italian prince and who was to take a major role in later years. So, this sets the scene. The year is 1938, just after the Anschluss, when Austria became affiliated to Germany, and we find the three ladies in three different countries. Gisela is on her own in Vienna. She eventually had to give up the guest house to the German army and fled to Vienna, where she had an apartment. Here she was looked after by various relatives and Roman, Ilse's fiancé. Hulda is stuck in Paris. She had visited her elder daughter Anita in Rotterdam, but due to the advancing German army, was finding it difficult to re-enter Austria to be with her mother Gisela. Ilse was advised to leave Austria. As the German army advanced, she fled overland through Germany to Rotterdam to be with her sister Anita, and from there she obtained travel permits and ended up in England. What should be explained here is that even though Hulda was now a Christian, the 30 years from her baptism in 1909 to the Second World War meant nothing to Hitler. To him, the fact that she was born a Jew into a Jewish family and had 4 Jewish grandparents meant that according to the Nuremberg law, she was a full Jew. So too were Anita and Ilse. Gisela in Vienna was feeling more and more isolated, waiting patiently for the call from Hulda to say that she had obtained the relevant travel permits to allow her to travel to Paris to be with her daughter. Life was becoming increasingly frightening for her as the Nazis' hold on Austria got stronger and many of her friends and relatives just disappeared. Hulda in Paris was finding life increasingly difficult. She approached Princess Marguerite, now living 6 months in Paris and 6 in America, who agreed to support Hilda and for the next 3 years send her a monthly allowance of the equivalent of £15, which must have been a godsend to her. £5 of this went straight off to Vienna to help her mother. The remaining £10 she used for day-to-day living. When the German army entered Paris, she fled to Nice, then Biarritz, then back to Nice again when the Italian army took over the running of the Alps Maritime area of France, which included Nice, making it a safe haven for thousands of Jews. Those letters tell of the never-ending struggles Hulda had to live through just to survive. But what comes through is the overriding hope for the future, when the 3 women would be together again. But that was not to be. In 1942, Gisela, now 72, became ill and was admitted to hospital. Soon after, the Nazis raided all public places, including the hospitals, and arrested all Jews, deporting them first to Theresienstadt holding camp just south of Prague, then on to Riga in Latvia, where, if she survived the journey in the depths of winter, was probably taken out to Rumbula forest, where she would have been shot and buried in a mass burial pit. Meanwhile, back in France, news had trickled through to Hulda that her mother had disappeared. She writes to Ilse. Nice, March 1942. My beloved Ilsekind, I write to you. They tell me letters are arriving from England. Maybe it's possible. I need to tell you what has been happening recently. Dear Ilsekind, it's all so sad. I told you about grandmother's illness. Yesterday I got more devastating news. Grandma, only half recovered, had to leave Vienna for Poland, like so many others. But I can't find out when or where. Isn't that horrible? You can imagine my state of mind. I am sick with fear and desperation. I immediately wrote to Geneva and the Red Cross. Well, little one, you would hardly recognise me. I went grey and look skeletal. 48 kilograms with my winter coat on. It really is getting too much to bear. Can one endure? I am completely at a loss, alone and isolated, and very, very dispirited. When will this nightmare end, and where will it all lead to? Where will destiny lead us before we will all meet again? That's my only hope, and hope keeps me going. You can't imagine how I am waiting for your letters. Take care of yourself, my beloved Ilse. You are all I have. I haven't heard from your sister for months. 1,000 kisses, Mutti. Ilse writes straight back on receiving her mother's letter. My beloved Mutti, you can imagine how happy I was to hear from you at last, and to be able to write real letters to you again, not just telegrams. I am busy saving, because after the war I want us two to live well and not be hungry. Mutti, please, please be steadfast. I have several plans for afterwards, and with a bit of luck we won't do too badly. But I also fear the worst for grandmother. I hope a miracle will happen and we can be a 3-girl household again. Oh, Mutti, if only it would all be behind us. Sometimes I feel it's even too much for me. Beloved mother, take care of yourself. Please don't lose any more weight, or I will have a hard time to nurse you. Always know that I am so very sad that I can't ease your burden. Please be my brave mum, and stay strong, whatever happens. I send you all my love and 1,000 kisses. Yours, Ilse. Under the Italian army, Nice had become a safe haven for tens of thousands of Jews who had fled from all corners of France to seek solace in a 30-kilometre stretch of coast in the Alpes-Maritime region of France. Whilst just down the coast, in Marseille, the arrests and deportations continued. It was at the beginning of September 1943 that this period of respite in Nice came to an abrupt end. The German army invaded the Italian zone, specifically Nice, and a ruthless manhunt was conducted against the Jewish population. In one roundup alone, 1,800 people were arrested and sent to Drancy holding camp on the outskirts of Paris, en route for Auschwitz in Poland. Somehow, Hulda managed to survive, probably with the help of the Christian community in Nice. The last letter from Hulda was to a very dear friend of the family, Alex. It describes the state Hulda was living through to survive. Nice, November 1943. My dear Alex, at last, after a pause of nearly a year, I have received a very welcome letter. Your letter is like a call from another world, a world that no longer exists, that lies so far in the past that one can no longer understand that we once lived in it. Before I start, I must apologise for my strange writing. I write mainly in bed with my gloves on, the only possibility in a room that is always around 5 degrees. For one thing, I have to pay full board for a bathroom. It has a sofa bed, a table and a stool. The room has a stone floor, looks north and is unheated. The gas is cut off. This is how I live. This is how I live every day. One slowly loses patience and hope, courage and fortitude. How I have always wished to see grandmother again. How lucky was I to be so loved. And now, perhaps, it is too late. Yes, my dear Alex, I cannot thank you enough that you give me news of my children. I have not heard from Ilse for nearly 5 months. Please remember me to them and tell them not to forget me. I thank you once again for your dear lines and hope we will be together soon. Many heartfelt greetings to you from your old friend, Hulda. The church played an ever-increasing part in Hulda's life from then on. During the early months of 1944, the Christian churches in Nice helped a lot of their refugee members plan their departure from Nice, which was becoming an increasingly dangerous place to live for people like Hulda, who in their hearts were Christian, but in the minds of the Nazis were Jewish. Safe transportation of Jews was arranged by the churches in Nice to Mens, Isère, an eastern province in France bordered by Switzerland. And Hulda found herself allocated a place on one of the convoys leaving from Nice railway station on March the 15th. Upon arrival at the station, she booked her luggage onto the train. She was about to board when she was stopped, her documents inspected, and she was arrested by the Gestapo. They were checking passengers on every train that left Nice that day. Hulda would have been taken to an assembly point and from there to Drancy on the outskirts of Paris. By this time, she must have suspected that her final destination was Auschwitz, where, because of her age, 54, and poor health, she was probably sent immediately to the gas chambers. Her luggage continued on to Mens without her. The church there looked after it until the end of the war, when they contacted my mother in England. There is a plaque commemorating the 3,000 Jews who were deported from Nice railway station. Duncan, my husband, and I found the plaque when we visited the station in 2012. It was a very emotional moment for us, as we had no idea it was there. It reads, between the 10th of September 1943 and the 30th of July 1944, more than 3,000 Jews, including 300 children, were arrested by the Gestapo in the Maritime Alps and Monaco and deported to Auschwitz after having been transferred from the central station in Nice to the camp at Drancy. Almost all those deported were assassinated. Less than 3% survived. If Hulda could have lasted just 3 months more, she would have survived. because the Allied army landed and liberated the main Mediterranean coastal towns, including Nice, in August 1944. We know all these facts because thanks to the Red Cross Society, they were able to access the amazingly detailed paperwork which the German army kept about all their transportations. In 1945, Ilse, desperate to hear news of her mother, eventually heard from the Red Cross regarding her mother's circumstances. I can't even begin to comprehend what my mother must have gone through knowing how her loved ones had died. Later that year, she met and married my father, Sonia Waterfall. Roman, losing faith in ever seeing Ilse again, married in 1942. In 1946, my sister Sonia was born, followed by John and finally myself. To end this evening, I would like to read you the very last letter that we found from my mum to my dad, Sydney. At last, she had found peace. Spring 1946. Ilse is expecting Sonia, my sister. Hello, my dearest. It's a grand day today, and guess what I am doing? I am sitting on the grass, basking in the sun, and I must say Junior and I enjoy it very much. The sun is lovely. We both feel great today, and we are perfectly happy. We are both longing for Saturday, when we three will be together again. I found some violets today. They smell lovely. Oh, my darling, it's spring, beautiful spring, and I am happy at last. Never in my life, not even when I was home and protected, have I felt so full of the joys of life than now. Won't it be great to walk through the woods, just we two humans, to rest when we want, to laugh and to sing, and to just be happy?